these are basically some of the exams that you should be looking up to. Some universities will request that you write only the SAT. Others will request that you write two of the requested examinations, which could be the SAT or the GRE. Others will also say that, okay, because of the COVID, especially what is going on right now, because of the COVID, we've waived off any form of entrance exams. So, which means that that works for some other universities as well. But there are some universities, for example, Harvard, last year, they waived off the GRE, but this year they brought it back. Some other universities, like I've tried to make mention of most of the medical universities, like the Job Hobson's University, which is a pure medical university. Another pure medical university will also be the University of California, Los Angeles, and also UC Berkeley and UC Irvine. These are medical pure universities, because what I will always suggest to my fellow colleagues who are medical lab technologists is that if you are looking up to programs like clinical microbiology, biochemistry, and other related programs, you should try to narrow it down to universities that are so much found in terms of medicine, because with that, you have the upper hand to use most of their laboratories. But if you are looking into clinical microbiology and you choose a university which is so much endowed in engineering, that will be a problem for you. So that's what I want you to just notice. It's very, very important for you to know. That's why you should read about the university that you want to go, and you will know which programs that they are very endowed in. If it correlates with what you are looking for, then you actually going for it. That is very, very important. Now, the next thing that you have to look out for is SOP and LORs. Is there anybody here who can tell me the meaning of SOP?
Standard organization procedure.
Pardon me?
It is a standard operating procedure.
Yes, standard operating procedure.
Okay, 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 okay. All right. Anyone else? I just want it to be a little bit interactive. Anyone else?
Hello. It's
Yeah.
called statement of purpose. The reason why you want to apply to that particular university and your main reason for applying to that particular university.
Okay.
Statement.
Okay. The statement of purpose. All right. So those that made mention of because we have the actual meaning for the SOP, which is related to the major procedures that we follow in the lab. But here in this case, we are talking about the statement of purpose, not the methodological procedures that we follow in the labs. Now, you must know how to write your own SOP, because they will ask you. There are some universities that will request a video interview of you, and they will be more critical to find out the reason why you've chosen that university, your career pathway, and what you intend achieving after the program. All these things might be put in your SOP. So SOPs, in case you do not know how to write. Now, lovely, we have the internet over there. You can actually search when it is time for English. I know that during my time, most of my friends, when it's time for English, they say that, oh, English is something that we all speak about. So why do I have to sit in it? So they do not. While they go out, I start in it, even though I did English as a program back in Ghana. It is nothing, it is always good for you to learn more, even if you know. You just subject yourself to your teachers and you learn. The best way for you to excel in life is when you watch what the masters do and you kind of repeat it. That is it. So SOP should be voided of grammatical errors. SOP should rather include some sort of vocabularies that shows that you are a graduate. It shouldn't be some sort of a passage that the words are so minimal. The words are just like people in stage 5 and stage 6 English. No. And for you to understand better, I think that it is better you actually sit for classes during English time for you to polish how you speak, because how you speak, it actually determines who you are. Anytime you open your mouth to speak, it tells us who you are. So you write your own SOPs and the LORs, which is the letter of recommendation. Very important. Now, if you are a student who doesn't take lessons seriously and you give, excuse me to say, teachers problems most of the times when it comes to classes, do you think your HOD will give you a good letter of recommendation? I'm asking a question.
No, you wouldn't.
So letter of recommendations are actually given in relation to somebody who has taught you, who knows you academically, and in terms of behavior wise. So these are very, very, very important factors that you need to consider. The next thing is apply to the colleges which fit your interests, which I've already added in the first point. Interviews, if like to always interview you, not because they want to find out whether you are a good fit or not, but they just want to know if when you come, because the mode of teaching here is English. So when they have the interview with you and based on their deductions and conclusion, they realize that your way of communication, your way of understanding, your usage of vocabularies will be a problem. They might use it to reject because there are lots of people applying to that university. It's not only you. Now, when that is done, possibly, then you could be given what is called the F1 visa, which is the student visa for you to apply. Then you go for the interview, which is the final thing for you to do. Then you come over for a program. So these are the mainstream steps for you to gain admission here in the University USA. Now, the essays, some essays, for example, when you are writing GRE or TOEFL, some essays will be strictly positioned on career aspiration. Now, what do you mean by career aspiration? Can anybody help us with this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you speak of career aspiration one, it your self-interest and what you think you are able to offer to the society that is much beneficial. Your career aspiration, it shouldn't be based on the fact of, let's say, seeing your friend into a certain field of studies, and then you don't have the know-how or the knowledge about that field, but since because you are seeing someone into that field of studies, and then you go and also jump into it to study there, that cannot help you. But let's take, for example, I want to become a therapist. So that's my career aspiration. So at this level, once I start to
You
build
want to become what?
a therapist.
I'm not sure I'm really getting the word correctly.
I
What?
think it's
Therapist.
a
Therapist.
therapist.
A
Therapist.
therapist.
Yes.
What therapist?
A clinical therapist.
Clinical therapist.
Yeah.
So what would you be doing? As a clinical therapist?
The first thing, as a clinical therapist, I should first know how to interact with my clients, because for the human person, you should know that once you are able to capture the mind, you have that person living a better life. If you don't able to capture the mind, you end the lifespan of that person. Like take for example, if a person goes to a medical facility and then or testing from the lab, and then the result is up, this person hears the result and then he or she is downhearted. Who comes in, let's say, to bring this person back to normality? One, a therapist.
Okay, I think you are Joseph Sua, right?
Yes.
Okay, so what you are terming as a clinical therapist, it has a Broadway discipline called the clinical psychology.
Yes, that's it.
Okay, all right. So is there anyone else who can also add up to what Joseph has already said in relation to the career aspiration?
I think to simplify it, it's just the vision for the future in your career.
You do what, Anastasia?
I said to simplify everything, I think it's just your vision for the future in your career.
Okay, okay. All right. We need one more student to add up.
So I would say it's achieving a professional goals.
Professional goals.
Yes.
Armor. Professional goals. I like that. Okay. So all that you said, they are all correct. I believe that they all make sense to what we are discussing here. So you should have a career aspiration. So far as that you are in school, when you get to your second year, you should know exactly what you are looking for anytime you step into the class. The reason why I got into immunology, because I had interest in microbiology and I had interest also in basic cellular pathology with histopathology combined. I was taught the microbiology by Manjuma. So it was there that I actually developed that interest. You know that most students don't like microbiology. Others will like it because they say that it's really cumbersome. It's really a lot. But when you have an aspiration, you set goals, as what Karma said. When you set goals, you always work towards it, irrespective of the circumstances that. So you just be focused, you work on it. I'm not saying that you will not face challenges, but even if you face challenges, we had teachers that we always had to run to, especially with our department, the HOD. I always run to him anytime I have issues. And even it got to a point where he had to connect me with another student who had passed through our department who was here in US. I had to communicate with the person every day. to find out if I'm actually making that, because sometimes you need somebody to give you rationalization of your goals, because you don't want to set some sort of unrealistic goals. So you need to, ask people who have already been there, then they can guide you. Do you really get my point?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah. So the next part will be strengths and weaknesses, of which this I know. So I wouldn't go much deeper into that. And then skills and experiences. Skills and experiences. Now, your skills and experiences will be based on how well you perform during your internship program. So your internship program is not period where you go there, you eat, and you sleep. That is the time you polish and obtain certain kind of experiences from those that you meet at the workplace. As a student, any opportunity that you get to learn, you learn it and you write it down. Any opportunity, and ask questions, because the best way to learn is to ask questions. So internship, to me, I did my internship at the Poly Labs, which is located at Mohali. And because of the COVID, we had to do it for, I think, 4 months or 5 months like that. But I really learned a lot, because gaining skills and experiences to, I believe that you need to locate yourself at a place that you will be giving the benefit to use certain machinery, certain equipment. Kind of say that I was fortunate, because where I chose to do my internship had a lot of equipment when it comes to microbiology, where I'm sure we were taught Vitech, we were taught Bactech too, but it was there that I really learned how to use those machines. We were also taken to most of the department, like the immunology department, chemical pathology. We were exposed, so I was really prepared to get into the job market. It was just because I made up my mind that for the internship, it's not just for you to write report, but to also polish your skills and obtain experiences. And then also the next thing is that they will also ask you why you are considering a particular school, which you will have to read about that school. So the SOP we've already talked about, which is the statement of purpose, which basically describes the reasons for applying to a particular college. So your reasons should be very clear and quite emphatic, just be direct, pointed. And then your letter of recommendation will be given to you by somebody who has actually taught you. Some of your lecturers will write very good recommendations for you based on your character and your behavior as well, not just academics only, sometimes your character too. Because no professor will give a letter of recommendation even if you are academically good, but in terms of character, you are zero. Because the letter of recommendation will determine the credibility of the one writing it for you. So if you just don't have good qualities and good characteristics, then you'll find it very difficult. Is that okay?
Yes, well understood.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. So for the general exams, like I said, we have the GRE exams, which you should try to read. How many of you are in your final years? Do you have some final years here?
Yes, I am.
Hello? Hello?
Hello.
I was asking, do we have some final years on this platform right now?
Yes, please. I'm in my final year. I'm doing my internship.
Okay. All right. Okay. So those in your final years, I think that it is very imperative. Maybe during your quiet time, you could just read, go to the Google, you read a little bit about GRE, you read a little bit about the SAT and other exams, just for you to know how it looks like, because you can also just type GRE exams samples. Then you see how those tests are structured and how it should be answered. But those that really want to write it, I could recommend a book called the Pearson GRE. They are the best books that you can actually study when you are looking up to studying in US here. And for SAT is basically for students that are coming in as undergraduates. So you do not need the SAT now, because all of you are already undergrad. So when you are moving from maybe LPU to USA, you basically be applying as graduate students. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the most important thing is the scholarship part. I know that when it comes to the tuition, is a little bit expensive. School in US is very expensive, as they say. Education is very expensive. So most importantly, if you fall within the category where you would like to obtain scholarship, then you need to work now. I mean now, because for you to have fee waivers, you should have some sort of extraordinary characteristics and capabilities for them to, because it's not just only you who will be requesting for scholarship. So it's more or less like a competition between you and other students that you do not even know in the whole world, who are applying for the same program, who are applying for the same year. You have no idea about it. Now, to obtain scholarship, it will not be easy, but if you stick to your plans and what I will tell you, you can actually work yourself through it. Because in my program, what I'm studying, which is the immunology, but basically I'll be specializing in viral, vaccine, and immunology. A year, what we pay a year without scholarship every year is 45,000 US dollars every year. And 45,000 US dollars every year, most people can only qualify for student loan. And you know how student loan, I don't know your perspective about student loan, but student loan is a loan that the school will give you or the government will give you. Basically, the government gives it. Now, as you go through the school, if it's 2 years or 4 years, the government will work what is called compound interest until the time that you start the payment of it. And sometimes they can give you 80,000 at the end of your program, but when you start to pay, it will start around $100,000. So student loans are quite expensive. And if you want to move away from the student loan so that you can have a better life, because student loan will always put pressure on you when you finish school. So scholarships are available, but they are very, very competitive, especially for those that are coming in as international students. So let's just go in straight for it. Now, the document that you will need for you to obtain a scholarship. First, that the documents usually needed for scholarship application are as follows. One, you need your academic record. No university will give full scholarship to somebody who is not academically inclined. No university will do that. So if you are in a final year, or if you are in the second year and you are looking up to getting scholarship, I think that you should work so hard on your academic records. You should. And the academic record comes in two ways. During my time in LPU, we completed and we wrote our final report based on what you did during the internship program. So what I did was that I actually read, because I don't know whether we have those two pathways students here, because during our time we had the higher study pathway, and then we have, is it the job search pathway? Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So the higher study pathways, which I was part of, we were taught extra courses that were not done by the general population of my class. So we were taught molecular biology, we were taught fundamental principles. Okay, so the other aspects of the job offer, they were also taught on how to do research review. So you can actually take a research paper, you read it, and you try to review it. The reason why I'm saying this is that if you get a little glimpse of how to review research paper, it will go a long way to help you in terms of seeking for your master, because we have two types of masters. We have the MSc, which is the Master of Science, and we have the MRES, which is the Master of Research. Now, Master of Science, it has broad modules, so you have several aspects to choose from. For example, the one that has been offered in LPU, after you can master yourself, or you can masters in clinical microbiology, that is MSc. Now we have the masters in research. For you to get into research, you should try to do what is called retrospective inspection of yourself. Try and ask yourself that, is this what I really want? Because research entails a lot. Research tends to get from you. Basically, what I want to say is that it will take a lot of your time. A lot of your time. So if you want to get into research, which means that you've assessed yourself, you want to get into the field of the academia, you want to get into the teaching field, then you get into the Masters of Research. But both, if you want to get admission into masters, either in the MSc or the Master of Research, try and then ask questions about how to do review of research papers. It will help you, because if you have that little experience, because during the video interview, they might ask you if you have a little bit of, how to do reviews, because that's the basics. If you are able to do reviews, then you can actually have an elaborative idea about how to write literature review on a particular research topic. So you should try and then read about it. Or you could also go on Google and then read about it. But I will also try to leave my Gmail account. Those that will also need a little bit assistance with that, I could also provide assistance to that effect. Okay. Okay. So the next one, we talk about your CV. You should have your CV ready. You should have a very in-depth CV that shows that you are capable of being given the scholarship. Scholarship is basically full of competition. Is one, your academic record, very, very important. So if you want to get scholarship, then you should be working on your GPA. They hire the GPA because those give you the scholarships, they never taught you. So they will use your academic credentials as a basics to give it to you. Now, when you have the academic records ready, your CV should also push it for you, which basically acts as a cover page. Then your exams that the school will request that you do. For example, the ones that we just spoke about. If it's the GRE, we do that. If it's TOEFL, you do it. If it's the IELTS, you do it. If it's MCAT, which is basically for people who are doing the MBAs. Now, the next last thing for you to do is letter of references or letter of recommendations. Very, very important, because those letters of references is your professor who is standing in, speaking well of you to that school. And you know that professors are so much keen with what they put out there, because what they put out there gives or kind of gives residual effects, and it reflects on their credentials. So no professor wants to give lies when he knows or when she knows that you are not good, because they always want to present good letters of recommendation to students that they know that when they go, they can actually, do very well. So if you are looking up to scholarships, these are the 4 aspects I believe that, and I will try to reiterate it again. Your academic records is very, very important. Your recent CV, which I'm sure you were taught how to construct CV during your English classes. Then the certificate of those language proficiency examinations that most of you are not aware of. From now, I'm sure there's more in there. Maybe at the end of this section, we could try to ask questions about it. And then letters of recommendations or letters of references, which are also very, very important. Is there any other question you would like to ask after this point before I continue with a few slides left?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joseph?
Yes.
Yeah.
My question here is mainly to point number 4,
Okay.
where they are asking for certificate of language proficiency.
Yeah.
Either the TOEFL or IELTS.
The TOEFL. Yeah, TOEFL or the IELTS.
Yeah. Okay. I haven't seen the IELTS test since I came to India.
Okay.
So what will happen if I graduate from here and then go back to my country and then want to remain in my country and then apply for this scholarship online? And then this test, I don't know if it is being offered back there in Africa. So,
you are asking if these proficiency exams are being offered in Africa?
Yeah.
It depends on where you are. Joseph, which African countries are you coming from?
Oh, I'm from the West, to be precise, Liberia.
Oh, you are Liberian from Monrovia. Okay.
Yeah.
So they offer that. But the reason why I will always suggest that you prepare while you are in school is because your mind is already occupied with academics. Now, when you finish school and you want to go back to your books, naturally, you might feel a little bit reluctant of doing it and you wouldn't pay that much attention. Now, when you're already in school and you are preparing for those exams, it gives you a upper hand because you are already studying for your CAs coming, CA1, CA2, and your main end-term exams. All these ones prepare you for that exams. But when you finish school and then you go back to your books, I don't know how you do it, but research says that if you really want to perform well, whatever exam that you want to write, you do it whilst you are in school, because at that time your mind is already preconceived with it. Is that okay?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can write it in Liberia, but I would suggest and I would rather recommend that you do it whilst you are in India, because for TOEFL, it will expire after 5 years. So when you do well, your grades can be used for 5 years. And IELTS, I think, is for 3 or 4 years or so. So whilst you are in school that you are always studying, I think that that's the best time for you to write exams, Joseph. That's my recommendations for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Is there any other one? Is there any other person that would like to also ask any other question before we all continue?
Yes, please. When I was in high school, I wrote the TOEFL exam.
Okay.
Right. But at that time I didn't have any assistance and I didn't know what I was doing. I just wrote it and then the result was there. So when I came to India, which is like 5 years later, I read about these exams and I realized the TOEFL will expire after 5 years. So I went back to check my results and then it's already expired. So right now, since I'm an undergraduate student and I want to offer for like the masters in another country, is it okay if I write the TOEFL again, or do I have to write another exam?
Okay. This is Anastasia, right?
Yes, please.
Okay. So Anastasia, from the beginning, if you could remember, I told you, don't just write exams. If you want to write exams, first search on a school. Every school has its own type of exams that they request international students to take. You understand? Now, when you are done with the exams and you get the response or the score, you send in the scores, because most of the times those scores will be sent into the schools directly, especially when you are seeking for scholarship. Those scores will be sent into the schools that you want to apply to. If the schools get your scores and says that, oh, Anastasia, we were looking for 470, but your score is 600. Congratulations. We would like to give you a scholarship into any of your programs that you would like to pursue. Then that will work for you. Sometimes you can get about 4 or 5 universities. I don't know if you've heard about this, that some people get about 4 or 5 universities and they decide which one to go.
I don't know about that, but I have a friend who got the scholarship in, I think, UK. That's the only thing I know.
Okay, so some people get scholarships which from 4 or 5 universities, and they decide to choose which one they want to go. Because if you perform so well on your score, a lot of the universities would like to have such a brilliant student to work with. You understand?
Yes.
So first of all, search on the school, get to know what the school's language proficiency exams that they are requesting international students to get. Then you try to work on that, because if you get TOEFL and you get good score, then you realize that the school that you want to go doesn't take TOEFL. It means that you've actually done course 9 to it, which is 0. Do you get my point?
Yes, I understand.
Yes. So first of all, you need to get in touch with the school, get them communicating with them, and find out the exams that you should write. Then you should prepare yourself for that. Okay.
Okay. Thank
Is
you.
there any? Let's take one more question, then we continue. Anyone? Karma?
No, sir.
Okay. No question this time around. Okay. All right. All right. So that was how to get into most of the universities. Now, the last thing that I will talk about before I come to this, which is just, I think I'm left with only 4 slides. The last thing I will talk about this is that when you are searching for scholarship, there is another way. Another way that most people don't know is this. If you are interested, if you know yourself that you have interest in research, which is very good, because if you get into research, it actually opens and broadens your understanding. It takes you to different horizons for you to know, because MSc only teaches you the broad theoretical aspect of what's going on in the program, but research takes you to 1 or 2 topics and you go in depth, and that only prepares you for people who are seeking PhDs. So people that want to do their doctorate and then, stuff like that, you particularly be inclined to the Master of Research, even though people from MSc can also do PhDs. But most universities, or most of the time, prefer people who have, a little bit in the taste of research work, because most supervisors wouldn't want to take you all the way to the blackboard to teach you how to write proposal, how to write grants. They wouldn't do that. So they want people that have at least 50% idea of what research entails, then you take it from there. Now, this is what I was come to tell you. If you're also looking for research and you are looking for schools, try and get into the database of some supervisors, some lecturers. Every school has specific renowned researchers. Now, this is what they do. If, for example, I'm looking for immunology supervisor, there are a lot of them. So I just Google into the school's database. I find out that in the Department of Clinical or Medical Immunology, we have lecturer A, B, C, D. Then I take their names and then search it on Google. You will get their profile. You get to know what they are interested in. You get to know the works that they've done. You get to know some of their presentations that they've done. Now, if you read some of their topics, and those topics interest you so well, for example, if I were to work on immunology, the reason why I got into the T-cell receptor called the CAR, chimeric antigen T-cell receptors against cancer, especially the adenosomas. The reason why I took this is because I had a little bit idea from histology that I was taught by Harpreet Sir. He taught us how those pathology of those diseases occur. Adenoma, it's called the adenoma carcinoma. So I had that idea, I read about it, I had that kind of interest in it. Then I built that interest in that relation. And I had that love also for microbiology. So I combined histology, microbiology, and what Dr. Naresh also taught us, which is the transfusion medicine, where I had an idea about immunology with relation to antibodies. So I combined all these things and I read into this doctor called Dr. Shiv Pillai from Harvard. So it was him that I was trying to communicate with. So he had done a lot of research on T-cell receptors and they were so interested. So I selected one part of it, communicated with him, but mind you, you can communicate with a lot of supervisors from different universities and sometimes none of them will even respond to you. It's not that they don't want to, but some of them have very tight schedules. Some are working on very preemptive research work. Some would need to look onto their student to present their work. Others are also working on grants, a whole lot of things. So some of them will not respond to you, but that shouldn't break you down. keep on, writing to a lot of people in the same area that you want to get into, because when they respond, that could be your chance. And I always tell my friends, it is always better to be prepared and not to get opportunity than to get opportunity when you're not prepared for. So when you're prepared, when they get in touch with you, sometimes they can even call you on Zoom, and then they will ask you question, why do you like my research topic? If you impress him or her, they will rather write recommendation to the school that they want this person to work with. That you get full scholarship, and that is when people get what is called monthly stipends. Stipends is like you are just working as a research assistant, at the same time you are still going to school. So because you are working with them every month, maybe they can give you like $10,000 or $15,000 based on your input. So even though you are looking up to those academics and whatever that I've told you, sometimes when you get into the schools department, look at these areas that I've talked about. Is there any other question on this? Is there a question on this?
No questions, sir.
Okay. All right. We want to talk about some of the career opportunities for the medical lab sciences. And we all know that medical lab sciences jobs are actually increasing at a rate of 4.5% every year. Now, this statistics is basically in relation to the United States. I'm schooling and at the same time I'm working. Now, those that will finish your program and you get a chance to move to US, for you to practice here, you need to have your license and examination. Examination also in India, right? Come on.
Yes, sir, I didn't get you.
Yeah. Before you can practice as a medical lab technologist, there are some licensing exams that you should be getting done. For example, if you come here, for example, I wrote what is Society for Clinical Pathology. So you write that exams. When you pass, then they can actually give you the license for you to practice. That is what you would use to get a job. Is that oh, okay. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. 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 All right. So I'm sure that every country will have their own specific exams to write. Yeah. So in our field of the medical lab technology, we have several job careers and specialties. So those that will finish with their BSc and will be done with their masters, who would like to get into the forensic laboratories. That's also a very good thing, of very good area to get into, forensics. We have hospitals, research clinics. Can anybody explain the meaning of hospital research clinics? Anybody? Hospital research clinic, yeah.
Are you saying hospital research clinic?
Yes. What's the meaning,
their work there, it has limitation.
Okay.
That is, here you just do what is required for a medical purpose, like going out to find a cause of certain disease or certain sickness, and then you give it to the appropriate authority for publication. But in this place, I don't think here the technician here is, let's say, endowed with the power of, let's say, administering treatment in this
Okay.
area. That's my
Okay.
thinking.
Okay. That's good. That's good. All right. That's good. Karma, you want to add anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Anastasia? Anas,
Yes.
do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay. So hospital research clinics is basically about research base. So what they do is that they carry out what is called the clinical trials. Okay. So they monitor. For example, you realize that we had a lot of the vaccines for the COVID. You understand? So when they actually start all the way from the animal trials into the human trials. In the human trials, they try to monitor in order to study the side effects of those vaccines. Those are actually done by researchers in hospital research clinics. Is that okay?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the next one, we can also work in the pharmaceutical companies, which is one of the biggest areas to work in. Because for the pharmaceutical companies, you know, they actually deal with drugs. So most of the time we try to study we do what is called drug development. How many of you still remember what AST means?
Is
AST.
it antibiotic susceptibility test?
Okay. Okay, so Karma, can you explain that to us in just a short note? What AST means?
It is a antibiotic susceptibility testing.
Okay.
That
Why
is
do you
my
do them?
guess.
Okay, okay, okay.
We just do a test on the antibiotic, whether antibiotic is able to inhibit the growth of the bacteria.
That's good. That's good. You are right. That's the right word I use. So we actually use the AST to detect what is called your zone of inhibition. So the larger your zone, the better chances that the drug fights against that microbes, right? Come on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay,
It will
okay.
create a zone of inhibition. Yes.
Exactly, exactly. So come on, you are right. So with the pharmaceutical companies, we have several aspects to this, which we can actually work in there. When you have strong basics in biochemistry and microbiology. So that is one part of it. Another job areas we can actually look up to is blood banks. But the reason why I'm stressing on this is that when we finish with the BSc, we are all rushing to the hospital clinics, hospitals. You don't normally see most of the MLS trying to get into the pharmaceutical companies, but we all rush. But these are all opportunities that we can actually find. They are available. We can also work in the blood banks. Now, for blood banks, even though you have your BSc in MLS, but if you really, really want to work in blood banks, then you should have different discipline called the transfusion medicine, because blood banks is actually an area that is very dicey, because your least mistakes, it could lead to a lot of complications. With blood banks, let's let me just add this question. How many of you have heard of what is called HLA?
Is it the human leukocyte antigen?
What?
Human leukocyte antigen.
Good,
It's to do
comma.
with, yeah.
Good.
MSC
So
class 1, class
what
2.
is comma? What is HLA?
Actually, it's basically a major histocompatibility thing, MSC class 1, class 2 proteins.
Okay. That's correct. That's correct. That's good. So HLA, which is called a human leukocyte antigen, is only expressed in two forms, which is the MHC, which is the major histocompatibility complex type 1 and type 2. These one detect whether it's going to bind CD4 or CD8. And we will talk about that one maybe in another section later on. We don't want to go into that because that's full of immunology. And then we can also find ourselves in public health clinics, veterinary practices and laboratories, public health organizations. I have a friend who is now working with one of these public health organizations, which is World Health Organization Africa. And what they do is that during an outbreak, they normally go there to take samples to just rule out possible outcomes. So that is public health organizations. And another one that is also very interesting that most of our colleagues do not get into is equipment and supply companies. In every lab, we have machines. We deal with machineries. Now, those machineries will have to be calibrated, will have to follow what is called QA. So the quality controls come with those reagents. And when you have an in-depth knowledge of our field with another, which is not our, which is called the biomedical engineering, which has to do with the repairing of the equipment, ours is only for the QC and the QA of those machines. If you have an in-depth knowledge on how to perform QC and QAs, companies will, because without QC and QA, the machines wouldn't have normal ranges to work with. We have what is called a standard deviation that you are going to work on has always been calibrated, is working within normal ranges. Therefore, the values that are coming out are in sync with what we call the manufacturer's calibration figures. If the machine is not working within the normal ranges, whatever report the machine gives out, it will be a complete waste. So these are some of the areas that we can actually get into if we are actually looking up to the working field of medical lab sciences. And these are some of the things that we've already thought about. If you're looking for the research-based areas, we can talk about the immunology, which is a very broad spectrum. And then under it, you can talk about the virus and the vaccine technology. Under the MLS, you can also go into what is called the gene therapy or the bioengineering. Then we can also talk about develop drugs, extraction of drugs, and then doing clinical trials of it. We can also talk about the industrial microbiology and gene sequencing, transfusion medicine, which you've already thought about, and laboratory equipment trials and QA. So that is the end of the presentation. If you have any other queries or questions, you can ask. Say thank you so much.
Yeah. Can you please share your email address with us?
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, I can share that. Okay. Any other question? Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. Also, Mom, for also giving me the opportunity to talk to my young colleagues. My prayer is that they all reach their full potentials and we see ourselves someday. Thank you so much. All right. Okay. Bye bye.
Thank you, ma'am.